Hello, hobby farmers. Welcome to the Hobby Farm Guys channel. I'm Steve. This guy here is Brian, and Eric is back behind the camera where he belongs. Today, we're going to share ways you can keep the cost of owning chickens down while still keeping your flock happy and healthy. So don't go away.
Today we got a twofer. We're going to talk about two of my favorite things to have: chickens and money. Perhaps like many of us that have ventured down the chicken keeping trail, you've invested in some chickens thinking it's a good plan to save money on eggs, only to discover that you spend more on keeping chickens than you ever did on buying eggs.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us that have had that learning opportunity. But over the years, we've also found through trial and error that there are also many ways to save money raising chickens. So if you're resourceful and maybe a little creative, you'll be surprised at how low you can get your chicken budget. So today, we share some of our tips for raising chickens on the cheap.
One of the largest ongoing costs associated with keeping chickens is feed. And while we're both big fans of keeping a balanced laying feed in front of our flocks to ensure proper nutrition and health, there are things you can do to easily offset much of your feed cost.
Right. Free ranging your birds is one of the best ways you're going to save money on raising chickens, is they'll be able to forage for much of their own food during the day. Feasting on grass, weeds, right, bugs that they find. Free range chickens also, they tend to be healthier, which saves on medical expenses down the road. However, they do need a safe area to roam. So walking out to discover a dozen mangled corpses, right, littering the yard from a dog attack, not only is it heartbreaking, it also is a punch to the wallet as well.
Yeah, another option, and a particularly good one if free ranging isn't an option, to grow some of your own feed. While you can plant and harvest grains, your chickens will also happily munch down many of the fruits and vegetables that you have growing in your garden already. Add a couple extra rows and plant some for the chickens. In the winter, you can easily grow fodder in small spaces indoors and continue to provide your chickens with fresh greens.
Likewise, those crops from the garden that don't get used, as well as many other kitchen scraps, well, they can be fed back to the chickens, right? They'll gladly finish off the unused, trimmed off celery stalks or strawberry tops that you were going to compost or just trash anyway, right? There are a few things to avoid, such as green potatoes, avocado skins, uncooked beans and rice, citrus, processed foods, things that are high in fat or salt, right? Or anything that's moldy or rotten.
And if you don't have a ton of kitchen scraps, ask around. Many neighbors will happily share, and local grocery stores, restaurants, even farmers markets often will give away or sell cheaply excess produce. It's not just produce you can save on. Wash and crush eggshells and feed them back to the chickens rather than buying oyster shell. Raise your own mealworms or grubs to feed as a snack rather than purchasing them.
Yeah. Another often overlooked but big part of savings on the feed bill is to make sure that you're only feeding your chickens.
Yep.
Right? You might be surprised at just how much of that feed is disappearing to mice or wild birds. Right? I used to just fill some feeders, leave them in the run all the time, and I was going through feed like crazy. Right? In the summer, when the birds were foraging all day, I was still going through feed. So one evening, the kid and I, we staked out the run with a couple of BB guns, and the sheer number of mice that we saw had me rethink my methods. Right, I switched over to a no-waste feeder, got them up off the ground, and my feed consumption dropped by over half. I was spending money feeding mice. So I made the feeder myself, using a kit I can buy on Amazon for pretty cheap, and they paid for themselves in under a month.
Yeah, it's amazing to see just how much feed can be wasted or stolen. You mentioned your solution was a do-it-yourself option. And that's a great way to save in other areas as well, specifically housing and equipment. While feed is an ongoing expense, building a coop in a run is a large upfront cost. Store-bought options can be expensive, so too the beautiful palaces on Pinterest. But building your own coop is a fantastic way to save some money.
Right. And even though that may mean your design, right, it's you design your coop around the materials you have instead of, the design that you want. I still use the first coop I ever built. And by built, I mean, appropriated. There was an old little shed that I turned into a coop. It's not my favorite. It has its limitations and it's not much to look at. but it was inexpensive, and it has kept chickens warm and safe for nearly 2 decades, right? The internet is full of free plans for coops. If you use reclaimed or recycled materials, that can also help drive the cost down as well.
And it's not only the structure. You can buy nesting boxes and roosting bars, or you can use spare cartons or bins and branches that were already lying around for free. Even bedding. Instead of buying bedding, use leaf litter collected from the yard, or maybe salvage straw bales that have been used for Halloween decorations, or collect shavings from a local mill or cabinet shop.
Yeah. In addition to saving money on feed and equipment, you can also realize savings by what we call embracing the thrifty lifestyle.
That's a nice way to say cheap.
Yeah. So if you have a rooster and some willing broody hens, you can save money by raising and hatching your own chicks instead of buying them, right? And not insignificant cost is the chickens themselves, right? Especially if you like fancy or rare breeds. But keeping a rooster and a broody hen are a couple of mouths to feed, but they can provide a money-saving service.
The next thrifty hack is probably the hardest one for people. But when viewed as livestock and not pets, it's hard not to get attached to those fluffy birds, right? But there will come a time when your hens are no longer producing well, and you'll need to cull them out in order to make the most of the resources you're providing. The longer you keep your hens, the more they're going to cost you overall. And the same goes for excess roosters. Unless you're maintaining separate breeds or running a breeding program, you only need one for most smaller home flocks, if at all.
Right. So unless you just want to keep your chickens for pets and don't really care about the cost return aspect, at some point you're going to have to cull those extra roosters and older hens to make way for new, younger hens. I know both of us, we run retirement villas, and we feed extra roosters and older hens. We don't care. But for a lot of people, if you're trying to do it on a budget, that's a good way to do that, right? A good way to do that is to cull a few each year and keep new ones coming in each year so that you have consistent expenses and production. That way you keep money from going down the drain by feeding unproductive hens.
Yeah, and the final thrifty lifestyle hack is to eat eggs, like a pioneer. Let me explain. Ever wonder how pioneers kept chickens when there wasn't a farm and ranch store that sold balanced layer mash just down the road? It's not like pioneers had tons of resources to create their own special blends either. So how did they do it? They ate seasonably, not just produce, but animal byproducts as well.
Right. They didn't force their hens to lay at top production year round. They simply let them forage, fed them a few scraps and occasionally tossed them some dried corn or scratch grains, and they collected whatever eggs resulted. They didn't try to get an egg a day out of every hen for most of the year. They just ate what they got. If you want eggs every day from every hen you own, it's going to cost you. There's no way around that. Peak production is going to require peak nutrition.
But using the tips we've discussed and growing some of their food, providing forage opportunities, keeping the purchase feed secure, and doing some DIY for the coop and supplies, along with embracing a thrifty lifestyle mindset, can go a long way in reducing the amount that you spend on your chickens. And the nice thing is, these solutions are a la carte. If your chickens are pets and you would never dream of culling them, great. Implement keeping the feed secure and you'll still see some cost benefits.
That's right, Brian. If you want to build that super cute Pinterest coop, do it. But maybe add a nice run where they can forage the day and plant a few extra veggies in the garden for them. You can save as much or as little as you want, depending upon where you fall on that spectrum. Hopefully, we've given you some ideas on how to save some money keeping chickens. If so, we sure would appreciate a good old thumbs up.
Yeah, and if you have a great hack that we didn't mention, tell us in the comments so everyone else can try it too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and happy hobby farming.